welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. In this video, we're going to be starting a brand new series, and we're going to be continuing our study of clouds, and in this video we're going to do sunset clouds. I'm going to show how to paint the sky and the general cloud shapes in this part. If you want to follow along with traditional materials, I have a list of all the brushes that I use, and I usually use a 2-inch flat wash, a number 10 bristle brush, a number 8 filbert, a number 10 flat brush, a number 6 flat brush, a long script brush, a short script brush, and sometimes I'll even throw in a number 3 round brush. I like to use canvas board mostly, but I also use wrapped canvas sometimes because you don't have to bother about framing the wrapped canvas and you can just paint on the sides of it. Here are the paints that I use, and I use Grumbacher Academy acrylics most of the time. I also use Liquitex acrylic paint, and some of these names will vary from brand to brand, so you kind of have to go by sort of the shade that they look like. And the app that we're going to be using is Infinite Painter for Android. And I have here a photo reference that I took of a sunset, and the moon is just beginning to rise, and I thought this would be a really neat picture to do, and also it works really well for a nice cloud study. So what we're going to be doing first is the sky. And we're going to use a sort of a grayish blue color because the light is starting to fade, and so the sky is going to get a little bit lighter colored instead of a deep blue color. So I'm using ultramarine blue for my acrylics and burnt sienna, and that kind of gives it a light gray color when you add a whole bunch of white acrylic gesso. So that would be if you're following along with acrylics or oils. And I'm using the Leo brush to do the sky, or a flat oil brush will work well too, an Infinite Painter. And if you're following along with traditional paints, then you can use your flat wash brush for this sky and use X strokes so that you can get sort of a clear looking or a smooth looking sky, because we don't want too much brush strokes for the sky. And then here I'm going to start underpainting the clouds, and I'm using a purplish color. And if you're following along with your acrylics, you can use dioxazine purple with some white acrylic gesso, maybe a little bit of ultramarine blue thrown in to darken the clouds on the bottom here. And we just kind of want some jagged horizontal shapes for these clouds. And you can use the Leo brush, or you can use the flat oil brush for these clouds. And then here I'm adding in some pink colored clouds, and you can use cadmium red light with white acrylic gesso for your acrylic colors. And we just kind of want to add in the different colors of the clouds here and just kind of smooth them in. We don't want any hard edges, and if you're following along traditionally, just use a dry brush technique, which means you don't have a lot of paint on your brush and you just kind of paint it on the canvas until it's really smooth looking and kind of fuzzy on the edges. And you kind of want some rounded strokes for the big cloud that's in the middle, the big puffy cloud. And here I'm using sort of a salmon color, and you can mix cadmium orange with some cadmium red if you're following along with your acrylics, and add a lot of white acrylic gesso to get this light salmon color. And then the top of the cloud is going to be sort of a bright yellow, so you would use cadmium yellow light with your acrylics and add a lot of white acrylic gesso, and we're just making little rounded strokes. And I'm using the flat oil brush in Infinite Painter. You can use your number 6 filbert if you're following along traditionally. I'm adding some darker salmon color here, and you would just use more orange and less red to get the salmon color with your traditional acrylics. And I'm adding some light pink on top of the horizontal clouds at the top. And then you would just smudge all these in, and you smudge them. You can smudge them anytime when you're using the digital painting, but if you're doing this traditionally, you want to smudge them in just as soon as you put the stroke down. And you can use your finger, or you can use a paper towel, or even just another dry brush. So you want to go ahead and just kind of smooth in all the oranges together into the yellow clouds, but don't kill all your light color. You just want to kind of smooth them in there. And smooth in the pinks into the purples at the top. And here I'm just kind of pushing the paint around a little bit to add a little bit more rounded look to the yellow part of the clouds. And then I added a little bit more of a orange color on the edge, and then some more yellow. And you just have to go back and add your different patches of cloud colors. And since it's the sunset, it's going to be a lot of blues and purples and yellows and oranges and light pinks. And you just kind of want to go ahead and put all those in the place that you see them according to your photo reference. And usually on these clouds, the bottom is darker, so I'm adding some dark purple here. And again, you can use dioxazine purple with white acrylic gesso and throw in a little bit of ultramarine blue to darken it. And so I'm making the bottom of the clouds pretty dark because, again, that's the way they look in nature. They're usually dark on the bottom as they get closer to the horizon. And then I'm adding a little bit of some light pink, and you want to go ahead and mix these together, and you want to keep these strokes horizontal because these are the horizontal clouds. They're usually called stratus clouds, I guess. And so you want to kind of keep those in the horizontal shape. You don't want to make them look vertical. And then for the puffy part of the clouds, you want to use rounded strokes. And here I'm using blending strokes to pull up a little bit more of the pink color and the salmon color into the yellow of the clouds. And you want soft rounded edges, sort of like a cotton ball. So you'd use sort of a circular motion. And you do this traditionally and also with your stylus. The motions are the same, whether you're painting digital or you're painting traditional. And then I'm just kind of smudging out some of the wispy clouds at the top. We want the edges of the clouds on the top to look real transparent and wispy-like. And then I want to go ahead and add some more highlights to the salmon or pink part of the clouds. And so I'm adding a little bit of a lighter pink color here, but I'm still using that rounded cotton ball shape. And then I want to go ahead and add a little bit of some lighter yellow to that too. So you would use your cadmium yellow light mixture if you're following along traditionally, and just kind of smudge those out. Work on the edges of the clouds a little bit. We're still in the middle stage of our painting, so we don't want the final details and highlights on the cloud yet. We're still kind of working on the shape and the edges of the clouds. And on the tops and the bottom of the clouds, you're going to have sort of real wispy thin shapes. And you'll have a little bit more defined lines on the big puffy part of the cloud. But this one's not going to be quite as defined as our last cloud study. This one's going to be a little bit softer. And so here I'm adding a little bit of a lighter yellow, adding some more light pink. And it doesn't matter if your pinks vary or your yellows vary. In fact, you kind of want that because you don't want them to be all one color. The sunset, as you can see, it's going to be all different colors. There's going to be pockets of dark and lighter color. So it doesn't matter if your colors vary. In fact, it will add to your painting if they do. Otherwise, you may end up sort of with a flat looking painting. So you do want to add quite a bit of different variations in your color. And so here I'm adding a little bit more highlights to the stratus clouds at the bottom, and I'm making sure that the strokes are horizontal and they go across the screen and across your canvas. And then as you go up into the puffier layers of the clouds, you want to go ahead and keep that rounded stroke. And I'm just kind of blending them in, but not destroying all the purple color, because you want the purple color to show through. You also want the light yellow color to show through. The orange color is going to be sort of your darker pockets on your clouds. So you want those to be sort of up against the lighter yellow. And then here there's some wispy clouds that are going to be floating in front of the big puffy clouds, so you want to add those. And it might be easier if you throw those on a separate layer, but you can just add them on the top here without too much damage. And so here I'm just kind of adding a little bit of darker purple and smudging it out. And I want it to look real wispy, and that just kind of gives it your three-dimensional look of the clouds. To add those dark wisps in front of it, and then to add lighter wisps on the bottom against the darker part of the cloud. And that's what painting is all about. It's contrast. You can't paint without contrast. You have to have the lights against the darks in order for the shapes to show up. And so this just kind of illustrates it pretty well by showing that you have to have the lighter parts of the cloud to show up. Otherwise, it just kind of blends out into one flat thing. So you definitely have to have contrast in your paintings. And so here I'm just kind of smoothing everything out a little bit. And you don't want to kill all the darks and lights. Like I just said, you want that contrast. But I'm working a little bit more on smoothing things out at the bottom. And this is still the intermediate step. So in the next video, we'll go ahead and add the final details to the cloud, and we'll add some more colors, and we'll also add the moon, and we'll put in a little bit of a silhouette at the bottom. So if you're interested in seeing that, then hit the subscribe button. And thanks everybody for watching, and thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.